That day, amidst thousands of books, I realized that the most valuable ideas weren't found online, but in the forgotten dust. And that discovery changed everything. I was an archivist, a guardian of the past, surrounded by silence and the scent of old paper. My daily life involved categorizing lives, stories, and knowledge that seemed to hold no interest for anyone in the age of infinite scrolling. I spent my evenings browsing social media, and I always saw the same things, the same topics, the same faces. I had this suffocating feeling that everything had already been said, that all ideas had been taken. The digital world seemed saturated, an ocean where everyone was shouting at once. I felt completely invisible, disconnected. For me, there was no longer any room for novelty. In this video, I'm going to tell you how a simple cardboard box, forgotten in a basement, opened my eyes to a world of fascinating, underexplored niches, far from the noise and competition. A world where scarcity creates value. Chapter 1: The Trigger in the Dust. It all started with an inventory. I'd been asked to sort through uncatalogued archives, donations that had been dormant in the basement for decades. In the depths of a damp room, I found a series of boxes filled with old magazines. Not well-known magazines, no. These were passion-driven publications, fanzines printed on a shoestring budget, dating from the 70s and 80s. The titles were incredibly specific: The Amateur Myrmecologist, A Guide to Ant Keeping; Bell Tower Horology, Restoration and Maintenance; or even The Art of Domestic Kintsugi, about repairing broken pottery with gold. My first reaction was an amused smile. It seemed so outdated, so useless. Who, in the full swing of the 21st century, would still be interested in repairing mechanical calculators or cultivating bioluminescent mushrooms? I almost threw it all away. But out of professional habit, I started leafing through them. And the passion that seeped from every page captivated me. These people weren't seeking fame, they were sharing deep knowledge, expertise born from hours and hours of practice. My curiosity was piqued. I pulled out my phone and typed "Queen Ant Farming" into the search engine. What I found astonished me. Chapter 2: The Digital Desert. The results were sparse. Very sparse. A few obscure blog posts, low-quality videos with terrible sound, and one or two dying forums where the last post dated back to 2012. There were no centralized resources, no well-produced modern content that explained this passion in detail. I did the same search for antique clock restoration. Same story. For kintsugi? A few quick tutorials, but nothing that delved deeply into the philosophy and complex technique of this art. It was a veritable digital desert. The contrast with popular topics was striking. For any trendy topic, you find thousands of creators, guides, courses. But for these more discreet passions, there was nothing. And that's when the idea began to germinate. What I had taken for obsolescence was actually an empty space. An unexplored territory. These communities hadn't disappeared, they were simply silent, invisible, for lack of modern platforms. They were waiting for someone to bridge the gap between their ancestral knowledge and today's communication tools. It wasn't a lack of public interest, it was a lack of quality content. And that's a fundamental nuance. Chapter 3: The First Experiment. I decided to try an experiment, without any expectations. One of the magazines talked about creating autonomous bioactive terrariums. A miniature ecosystem in a jar that maintains itself. The idea fascinated me. I spent weeks compiling information from the old magazines and dusty forums. I learned to choose the right plants, the microorganisms, to manage humidity. It was complex, but fascinating. I filmed the entire process with my simple phone, unpretentiously. I documented my mistakes, my doubts, my small victories. I showed the complexity of drainage, the importance of woodlice and springtails for the natural cleaning of the ecosystem. I then edited a very simple, raw video and uploaded it, with a descriptive title, "I Build My First Bioactive Terrarium from A to Z." I shared the link on the only small, still somewhat active forum I had found. Then, I went to bed, convinced my video would get lost in the internet's abyss. The next morning, when I opened my computer, I couldn't believe my eyes. There weren't millions of views, far from it. But there were about 100 comments. And these weren't your usual comments. They were long, detailed, full of precise questions, thanks, and advice. People from all over the world, enthusiasts who felt alone, had just found a rallying point. Chapter 4, Discovering the Tribe. That's when everything shifted. It wasn't a matter of numbers, but of the quality of interaction. People in the comments started exchanging with each other, sharing their own terrarium photos, asking me questions about specific plant species. A real small community was being born before my very eyes. I understood at that moment that the value of a niche isn't measured by its size, but by the intensity of its members' passion. An audience of 100 deeply engaged people is worth 1,000 times more than an audience of 1 million passive viewers. I continued to produce content, answering the questions the community asked me. We talked about creating miniature waterfalls, integrating mushrooms, choosing mosses. Each video was a conversation. I realized that these forgotten niches possessed an enormous advantage: the absence of competition. I wasn't competing with thousands of others. I was simply there, offering clear, passionate information where there was none. And that's the secret. It's not about reinventing the wheel, but about finding the roads that no one has bothered to pave yet. And the most fascinating thing is that this principle applies to an infinite number of fields. Chapter 5, The Anatomy of an Unexplored Niche. Emboldened by this experience, I actively started searching for other niches of this type, not for myself, but out of pure intellectual curiosity. I developed a kind of method to identify them. Firstly, there needs to be a barrier to entry. I'm not talking about a financial barrier, but a knowledge barrier. If anyone can become an expert in 5 minutes, the niche is likely already saturated. The restoration of antique fountain pens, historical calligraphy, programming video games for old consoles like the Game Boy, these fields require time and patience. That's what protects them. Secondly, there needs to be an existing community, even if it's dormant. Look for old forums, Facebook groups with few members, subreddits with few posts. If people are talking about it, even a little, there's a spark. It just needs oxygen. Thirdly, there needs to be a disconnect between the physical world and the digital world. Think of craft skills, manual hobbies, highly specialized academic knowledge. Often, the information exists, but it's stuck in old books, technical manuals, or in the minds of a few experts who aren't on social media. Your role is to become the translator, the bridge builder. But the most important thing isn't even here yet. Chapter 6, The Hidden Potential in Intersections. The real magic happens when you start intersecting niches. That's where the most untouched territories are found. For example, instead of talking about gardening, a huge niche, you can focus on aquaponics gardening for small apartments. You combine 3 areas: gardening, aquaponics technology, and the constraint of urban living. Another example, historical cooking. Instead of making classic recipes, imagine recreating dishes from ancient Rome based on period texts. You combine history, archaeology, and cooking. I discovered people who specialized in creating electronic music with medieval musical instruments. Or others who applied the principles of Japanese minimalist design to garage organization. These intersections create something entirely new. They attract people from different backgrounds and create a unique culture. That's where you stop being a simple content producer to become a true community builder, a pioneer. You don't just fill a void, you create a new space that no one had imagined. It's infinitely more rewarding, and the potential is immense because there's literally no one else. Chapter 7, The Final Lesson, Beyond Simple Interest. My journey, which began in the dust of a basement, taught me a fundamental lesson. Profitable and underexplored niches aren't magic formulas or shortcuts. They are, first and foremost, areas where authentic passion can flourish away from the pressure of trends. Profitability shouldn't be viewed solely from a financial angle. It's also social, intellectual, and personal. It's the satisfaction of mastering a rare skill. It's the joy of connecting people who share a unique interest. It's the value you create by making knowledge accessible. When you focus first on passion and on serving a small, neglected community, the rest often follows naturally. The world is far vaster and more diverse than what algorithms show us. There are thousands of passions, skills, and subcultures awaiting their digital moment in the sun. You just have to look where no one else is looking. You just have to have the curiosity to lift the rug, dust off old books, and listen to the silent conversations. Your unique passion, the one you might think is too weird or too specific, isn't a weakness. It might be your greatest asset. It's an empty space just waiting for you to fill it. True opportunity isn't found in the crowd, but on the unbeaten paths that no one has dared to take yet. Save this video so you don't forget. Don't forget to subscribe.